The massive ships appeared without warning. One moment, Earth's skies were clear. The next, 12 enormous vessels hung in orbit, each one larger than the largest human city. Panic spread across the globe. Traffic jammed every major highway as people fled urban centers. News channels showed the same frightening images, dark shadows falling over New York, Beijing, London, and other major cities as the alien ships positioned themselves. In Washington, D.C., Commander Samantha Kelly stood before the Emergency United Nations Assembly. At 42, she had served in the United Earth Defense Force for 20 years, but nothing had prepared her for this. Her uniform felt too tight around her neck as she addressed the gathered representatives. "We have limited options," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Their technology is far beyond ours. Our most powerful weapons would barely scratch their hulls." The Secretary General leaned forward. "What do you suggest, Commander?" Samantha took a deep breath. "We must negotiate. Buy time." From the back of the room, a voice called out, "Time for what? Surrender?" The room fell silent as President Daniel Harper entered. Though he had aged considerably in his first term, his presence still commanded respect. "We will not discuss surrender," the President said. "Not now, not ever." At that moment, every screen in the room lit up with the same image. A tall, humanoid figure with gray-blue skin and eyes that seemed to contain galaxies. When it spoke, its mouth didn't move completely in sync with the words, "People of Earth, I am Admiral Lorex of the Jirani Imperial Fleet. Your world now falls under the protection and authority of the Eternal Empire. Resistance is futile and will result in significant loss of life. You have 48 Earth hours to surrender your governing authorities and military assets. We await your wise decision." The transmission ended. The room erupted in shouting. Miles away, in a secret research facility buried beneath the Nevada desert, Dr. Alan West watched the same transmission on a small monitor. Unlike the politicians, he didn't waste time with fear. The 50-year-old scientist turned to his team, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Get me everything we salvaged from the scout ship," he ordered. 3 years earlier, a small alien craft had crashed in the Arizona desert. The government had covered it up, bringing the wreckage to Alan's facility. For years, they had made little progress understanding the technology. Now, they had no choice but to solve its mysteries. Alan's assistant, Kate Johnson, pulled up the files. "What are you looking for?" "Weaknesses," Alan said simply. "Everything has them." Back in Washington, the emergency session had devolved into chaos. Some nations advocated immediate surrender to save lives. Others insisted on fighting, even against impossible odds. Samantha stood by the president as he addressed the assembly. "Again, we cannot make this decision alone. Each nation must return to their people. In 24 hours, we reconvene and vote. But know this: America will not kneel." As the representatives filed out, President Harper pulled Samantha aside. "Tell me honestly, Commander, do we have any chance at all?" Samantha looked into the tired eyes of the man bearing the weight of humanity's future. "Sir, history is filled with technologically superior forces being defeated by determined resistance. The British Empire, Vietnam, Afghanistan. It's never about who has the bigger guns. It's about who's willing to lose more to win." The president nodded slowly. "Prepare your best defense plans, but pray we don't need them." Around the world, people reacted differently to the aliens' ultimatum. Some cities saw looting and violence. Others witnessed prayer gatherings in streets and parks. Many families simply huddled together at home, watching the enormous ships through windows or on television screens. In Chicago, police officer Lisa Rodriguez helped maintain order as best she could. The 35-year-old worked a double shift, breaking up fights and preventing store break-ins. "The world isn't ending today," she told a frightened store owner, "and we don't stop being human just because aliens showed up." As she drove through the unusually quiet downtown streets, she glanced up at the massive ship hovering above the city. Something inside her hardened with resolve. On the USS Defiance, a nuclear submarine patrolling the Atlantic, Captain Ryan Peters received encrypted Orders to go deep and dark. The 44-year-old naval officer gathered his crew. "We may be witnessing the most important moment in human history," he told them. "But our job remains the same. We protect our people, no matter what comes." The submarine descended to depths, where it could hide from detection, becoming one of humanity's few military assets not immediately visible to the watching aliens. In Nevada, Alan West hadn't slept. Coffee cups littered his desk as he pored over the alien technology. Something in the power systems looked familiar now, patterns he hadn't noticed before. "Kate," he called to his assistant, "look at this frequency pattern. It's similar to our shield theories, but it's inverted." Kate studied the readings. "You think their shields work on this principle?" "I think," Alan said slowly, "we might have found our first advantage." The next day, representatives returned to the United Nations. Many looked like they hadn't slept. Some hadn't even changed clothes. President Harper took the podium. "Before we vote, I want to share something with you. Throughout last night, I received calls from citizens across America, not politicians or generals, but ordinary people. A farmer in Iowa, a teacher in Oregon, a nurse in Florida. None of them said surrender. All of them said the same thing. Earth is our home. We defend it." Samantha watched as the president's words changed something in the room. Backs straightened, chins lifted. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Earth would not surrender. As the 48-hour deadline approached, humanity prepared its answer. Military forces worldwide mobilized, knowing they faced impossible odds. Civilians stocked supplies or evacuated from major cities. In the White House Situation Room, Samantha Kelly helped craft the response to the aliens. The message was simple, just 4 words. "Earth does not kneel." The transmission went out exactly as the deadline expired. For several minutes, nothing happened. Some dared to hope the aliens were reconsidering. Then, without warning, bright beams of light shot down from the alien ships. Buildings in New York, Tokyo, and London vaporized instantly. The bombardment had begun. President Harper watched the destruction on multiple screens, his face ashen but determined. "And so it begins," he said quietly. Samantha nodded grimly. "Yes, sir. But this is just day 1. In Nevada, Alan West felt the facility shake from distant impacts. He didn't look up from his work. The clock was ticking now, and the future of humanity might depend on what he could discover about their new enemy. As dust and smoke rose from devastated cities around the world, the greatest struggle in human history began. The Jurani Empire had conquered dozens of worlds with ease. Earth would not be one of them. 6 months passed since the Jurani first attacked Earth. The world had changed completely. Cities that once shined with light now lay in ruins. The aliens had established bases in strategic locations across the planet. Large metal structures rose from the rubble of former capitals housing the invaders and their technology. But something unexpected had happened. The Jurani, who had conquered many worlds before Earth, found themselves facing constant attacks from humans who refused to accept defeat. Lisa Rodriguez no longer wore a police uniform. Dirt smudged her face as she crawled through a broken drainage pipe on the outskirts of what used to be Chicago. 6 people followed behind her, each carrying homemade weapons or stolen alien technology. "Remember the plan," she whispered. "We hit the fuel depot, plant the charges, and get out. No heroes today." Frank Miller nodded. The former Marine had taught their group how to make explosives from common materials. His large hands carefully protected the charges they would use today. "Their patrol passes by the south fence every 17 minutes, said Olivia Grant, the youngest of their group at only 23. Before the invasion, she had been studying electrical engineering. Now she created devices that could disrupt alien communications. "That gives us a small window." The night sky glowed purple where Jurani ships patrolled. Lisa checked her watch, a simple mechanical one, as digital devices could be tracked by the aliens. "Let's move," she said. Across the Atlantic Ocean, the USS Defiance remained one of the few surviving military vessels. Hidden in deep waters, Captain Ryan Peters had turned the submarine into a mobile command center for resistance operations in Europe and North Africa. Ryan studied maps spread across the table in the submarine's control room. Red marks showed known alien bases. Blue marks showed successful human resistance strikes. The attack in Barcelona worked, said his second-in-command, Lieutenant Paul Wright. Our people destroyed an entire weapons cache. Ryan nodded. And the cost? Paul's face darkened. 3 resistance fighters didn't make it out. Ryan added the information to his records. Every victory came with losses they could barely afford. But giving up was not an option. Any word from Nevada? Ryan asked. Message came through their secure channel yesterday. Dr. West says he's making progress. The submarine crew had no way of knowing how critical that progress would be. In the underground research facility in Nevada, Alan West hadn't seen daylight for months. The base had survived by being hidden deep beneath the desert, its power systems masked from alien detection. Alan's hair had grown longer, and a beard now covered his face. He barely noticed his appearance as he worked tirelessly on the alien technology. I think I've got it, he said to Kate, who looked equally tired but determined. The shield frequencies aren't random. They follow a mathematical pattern. He pointed to lines of code on his computer screen. See this sequence? It repeats every 17 seconds. If we can time our weapons to hit exactly when the pattern reaches this point. He pointed to a specific section. The shields will be at their weakest. Kate's eyes widened. Can we communicate this to the resistance groups? We'll have to use the emergency broadcast system. It's risky, but this information could change everything. On the other side of the world, in what was once Beijing, Commander Samantha Kelly moved through shadows between destroyed buildings. After the initial attack, she had been separated from Washington and had spent months gathering intelligence and organizing resistance cells across Asia. The surviving Chinese military had joined forces with her, creating one of the largest resistance networks on the planet. Today she was meeting with a new and unexpected ally. The building had once been a small restaurant. Now it was just 3 standing walls and rubble. A figure waited inside, hidden in darkness. Commander Kelly, said a voice that wasn't human. Samantha's hand moved to her concealed weapon, but she didn't draw it. You said you had information. The alien stepped forward, its blue-gray skin catching the faint moonlight. It was smaller than most Jirani soldiers, with markings around its neck that indicated a scientific rank. My name is Vex, it said in carefully practiced English. I am part of a small group within the Empire who believe this invasion was wrong. Samantha remained cautious. Why should I believe you? Because I can give you the patrol schedules for the next month and the access codes to the central communication hub in Seoul. Samantha had learned to hide her emotions well, but even she couldn't mask her surprise. If true, this information would be invaluable. Why help us? She asked. Vex's large eyes blinked slowly. The Empire has conquered many worlds, but none have resisted like yours. Some of us have begun to question our leaders. Your people fight with a spirit our Emperor doesn't understand. Back in Chicago, Lisa's team had reached the alien fuel depot. Large containers of glowing blue liquid stood in rows, guarded by only 2 Jirani soldiers. The aliens had grown overconfident, believing the humans in this area had been pacified. Frank placed charges at strategic points while Olivia used her device to create a small disruption in the perimeter sensors. 2 minutes until the patrol returns, Olivia whispered. Lisa nodded. Almost done. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared from the compound. Something had gone wrong. Run! Lisa shouted, abandoning stealth. The team sprinted away as Jirani guards fired energy weapons at them. Blue bolts scorched the ground around their feet. Frank triggered the detonator early. The explosion wasn't as effective as planned, but the night sky lit up with blue fire as some of the fuel containers ruptured. As they ran through destroyed streets, Lisa counted her people. 5. 1 was missing. Where's Carlos? She gasped. No, 1 answered. They couldn't go back now. That night, resistance cells across the planet reported similar missions. some successful, some not. But together, they formed a pattern of defiance that confused the Jirani military leaders. In orbit, around Earth, Admiral Lorex received reports from ground commanders. Human attacks had increased by 20% in the last month. Imperial casualties, while still small, were growing. "This is taking too long," said his second-in-command. "We should have controlled this planet within weeks, not months." Lorex stared at the blue planet below. "Inform the Emperor. Tell him we need more forces." He didn't add what troubled him most. No species had ever resisted this long, and somewhere deep inside, a feeling he had never experienced before was growing. The humans called it doubt. 1 year had passed since the Jirani arrived. Earth was wounded but not defeated. The resistance had grown stronger, more organized. Small victories gave people hope. But everyone knew they needed something bigger to truly challenge the invaders. Commander. Samantha Kelly moved carefully through the underground tunnels beneath Seoul. The city above had been one of the first to fall. Now it housed a major Jirani communications hub. Intelligence from Vex, the alien defector, had proven accurate so far. Tonight would be the true test. "Everyone clear on the plan?" Samantha asked the team of 12 fighters gathered around her. They nodded. Each person carried weapons combining Earth and Jirani technology. Months of raids had provided them with alien parts that human engineers had adapted for their own use. "Remember, we need the command officer alive," Samantha reminded them. "The data in his head is worth more than anything else." Across the ocean in the Nevada facility, Alan West waited anxiously by his communication equipment. His discovery about the shield frequencies had helped resistance fighters damage Jirani vehicles and smaller craft. But the major ships remained out of reach. "Any word from Commander Kelly?" he asked Kate, who monitored the secure channels. "Nothing, yet," she replied. "The operation should be starting now." Alan checked his watch. So much depended on tonight's mission. If Samantha could capture a high-ranking officer and the communication codes, they might finally learn the location of the Empire's supply lines. In Seoul, Samantha gave the signal to move. Her team split into 3 groups, using maintenance tunnels that the Jirani didn't know existed. The aliens had mapped major infrastructure, but missed these older passages built during the previous century. The first group, led by a Korean resistance fighter named Jin, created a distraction 2 blocks away. Explosions rocked the night, drawing Jirani guards away from the communications hub. Samantha led her group through a service entrance using a device Olivia Grant had designed to disrupt the security sensors for exactly 45 seconds. "Move," she whispered, and they slipped inside. The interior of the Jirani facility looked alien. Curved walls glowed with soft blue light. Strange symbols marked different sections. Thanks to Vex's information, Samantha could read enough to navigate to the central control room. 2 guards stood outside their target. Before they could react, Samantha's team fired weapons designed by Dr. West. The energy bursts hit at precisely the frequency needed to penetrate the aliens' personal shields. Inside the control room, 3 Jirani officers worked at terminals. The one with red markings on his uniform, the commander, reached for an alarm. A human fighter fired, hitting the alien's arm. The Jirani commander fell back, injured but alive. "Secure him," Samantha ordered. "Download everything from the main system." A resistance tech specialist connected a device to the alien computer. It began copying files using an interface Dr. West had designed based on the crashed scout ship technology. The commander stared at Samantha with large dark eyes. "You cannot win," he said in halting English. "The Empire spans 1,000 worlds." "We don't need to defeat your entire empire," Samantha replied. "We just need to make Earth too costly for you to keep." The download completed, and they began their retreat. The captured commander was bound and sedated. As they moved through the corridors, alarms finally blared. "Our exit is cut off," reported one fighter after checking ahead. "Secondary route," Samantha ordered, leading them down a different passage. They emerged 3 blocks away, just as Jirani forces surrounded their original exit point. Sol's resistance fighters helped them disappear into the maze of half-destroyed buildings and underground passages. Hours later, in a secure bunker, the team had their prize, the Jirani commander and the downloaded data. Human doctors familiar with alien biology kept the commander sedated while translators worked on the files. Samantha sent an encrypted message to all resistance cells. Package secured, data being analyzed. In the Atlantic, Captain Ryan Peters received the message aboard the USS Defiance. He immediately ordered his communications officer to contact Nevada. Dr. West needs to see everything they found, he said, and prepare the ship. We may need to move soon. The data from Sol revealed something no one expected. The Jirani had established a major supply depot not on Earth, but in orbit around Mars. The red planet had become their staging area, away from the constant harassment they faced on Earth. When this information reached the Nevada facility, Alan West called an emergency meeting with his team. "This changes everything," he said, showing them the location of the Mars depot on a large screen. "If we could hit them there, we'd cut off supplies to their forces on Earth." Kate looked skeptical. "How? We barely have functional aircraft alone spaceships that could reach Mars." Alan smiled for the first time in months. "Actually, we do. 3 space shuttles survived the initial attack. They were in underground hangars for maintenance. But they're not warships," another scientist objected. "They will be," Alan said confidently. "We've learned enough about Jirani technology now. We can modify them." The plan was daring to the point of madness, but across the planet, resistance leaders agreed it was their best chance. If they could strike at the Mars depot, they might force the Jirani to reconsider their occupation of Earth. In what remained of the Atacama Desert in Chile, engineers and pilots gathered in a hidden facility. The 3 surviving space shuttles had been transported there in pieces and reassembled underground. Now they were being modified with Jirani technology. Colonel Jack Bennett, a former astronaut who had been training pilots in secret, examined the modified shuttles. At 52, he had never expected to fly again, certainly not on a mission like this. "Will they work?" he asked Alan, who had come to oversee the final preparations. "The shields will hold," Alan assured him, "and the weapons system is based directly on their own design. The real question is whether your pilots can handle them." Jack nodded toward the 12 men and women preparing nearby. "Best of the best. If anyone can do it, they can." The plan called for a small fleet, 3 modified shuttles carrying 24 fighters total, to launch in 5 days. They would use the sun's radiation to mask their approach to Mars, then strike the depot with everything they had. No one spoke about the return journey. Everyone understood this might be a one-way mission. As preparations continued, resistance cells worldwide increased their attacks on Jirani positions. The goal was to keep the aliens focused on Earth while the real strike was prepared elsewhere. In orbit, Admiral Lorex grew increasingly frustrated. Reports of human attacks came from every continent. His forces were stretched thin, constantly, responding to new threats. "These humans don't know when they're beaten," he told his officers. "But soon the reinforcements from Mars will arrive. Then we'll end this resistance once and for all." He didn't know that humans had already learned about his Mars supply line. Nor did he suspect that Earth's first counterattack beyond its own atmosphere was days away from launch. The resistance called it Operation Mars. Everyone involved knew the odds of success were small, but after a year of fighting just to survive, the chance to strike back gave them something they desperately needed: hope. The 3 modified shuttles launched from the Atacama Desert under cover of darkness. They rose through Earth's atmosphere, carrying humanity's hopes with them. Colonel Jack Bennett commanded the lead shuttle, renamed Courage. The other 2 were called Defiance and Hope. "All systems nominal," Jack reported as they cleared the atmosphere. Engaging Jirani shields. The shield technology Dr. West had adapted from alien designs hummed to life around each vessel. It would hide them from Jirani sensors until they were ready to attack. "Remember," Jack told his pilots, "we follow the sun's radiation belt. Stay in its shadow until we reach Mars. On Earth, resistance fighters launched coordinated attacks on Jirani positions worldwide. From the ruins of London to the beaches of Australia, humans struck with newfound boldness. The aliens were forced to focus on these immediate threats, never suspecting the real danger was already heading toward Mars. In his underground facility, Alan West monitored the shuttle's progress through a communication system designed to avoid Jirani detection. "They're on course," he told Samantha Kelly, who had come to Nevada after the Sol mission. "If all goes well, they'll reach Mars in 60 hours. Samantha looked at the display showing 3 small dots moving away from Earth. "And if they succeed? Then the Jirani lose their main supply line. Their forces on Earth will be cut off." In orbit above Earth, Admiral Lorex received troubling reports from all sectors. Human resistance had suddenly intensified everywhere. His commanders requested reinforcements, but resources were stretched thin. "Send word to Mars," Lorex ordered his communications officer. "Tell them to expedite the next supply ships. We need more troops and equipment immediately." The officer hesitated. "Sir, we've been having communication difficulties with the Mars station. There seems to be some interference." This wasn't coincidence. Olivia Grant, working with resistance technicians around the world, had created a massive jamming system targeting the specific frequencies the Jirani used for deep space communication. What Lorex didn't know was that his messages weren't reaching Mars, and they wouldn't arrive in time to warn the supply depot of what was coming. In the Jirani Imperial Palace, light years from Earth, Emperor Kalzak called an emergency meeting of his War Council. The marble-like hall, with its towering columns made from materials unknown to humans, echoed with troubled voices. "The Earth situation is becoming problematic," said the Imperial Minister of Conquests. "Admiral Lorex reports resistance continues to grow, despite our superior forces." Emperor Kalzak's skin was a deeper blue than most Jirani, marking his royal bloodline. His eyes narrowed as he studied reports from the Earth campaign. "One planet," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "One primitive planet has resisted us. For a full cycle, this is unprecedented." "The humans are unusually adaptive," offered another minister. "They learn our technology and turn it against us faster than any species we've encountered." "More concerning," said an older counselor, "reports indicate that rumors of Earth's resistance have reached 3 of our subject worlds. There have been incidents." The Emperor stood, his tall frame casting a shadow across the table. "No more delays. Prepare the main fleet. We will make an example of Earth that the galaxy will not forget." As the Jirani leaders plotted Earth's destruction, Jack Bennett's small fleet approached Mars. The red planet grew larger in their viewports. So did the Jirani supply depot. It was enormous, a sprawling structure orbiting the planet like a metal moon. Dozens of ships docked at its various ports, loading supplies and troops destined for Earth. "My God," whispered Jack's co-pilot. "It's bigger than we thought." Jack studied the station. "Stick to the plan. Target their power core and fuel reserves. We may only get one pass before they realize what's happening." He opened the channel to all 3 shuttles. "This is Colonel Bennett. Remember what we're fighting for. Every living soul on Earth is counting on us. Let's make this count." The shuttles dropped out of the sun's shadow and accelerated toward the station. For precious seconds, the Jirani didn't notice them. When alarms finally sounded across the depot, it was too late. The modified Earth vessels fired weapons built from captured Jirani technology, targeting exactly the frequencies Alan had identified. The station's shields flickered and failed in those precise spots. Explosions bloomed across the depot's surface. Unprepared for attack, the Jirani scrambled to respond. Defensive weapons activated, filling space with energy beams. Evasive maneuvers. Jack ordered as his shuttle rocked from a near miss. The Hope wasn't as fortunate. A direct hit damaged its engines. "We're losing power," came the pilot's voice over the comm. "Complete your run," Jack told them. "Make it count." The damaged shuttle accelerated directly toward the station's main fuel depot. The pilot's voice was calm over the radio. "For Earth." The resulting explosion tore through the station's central section, Chain reactions spread across its structure. Docked ships tried to flee, but many were caught in the expanding destruction. Base. Defiance and Courage continued their attack runs, targeting key systems identified in the intelligence gathered from Sol. When they finally turned to leave, the Mars depot was breaking apart, debris raining down on the red planet below. Head home, Jack ordered, though he knew their chances were slim. Their fuel reserves were low, and Jirani ships would surely pursue them. To everyone's surprise, no pursuit came. The surviving aliens were too busy trying to save what remained of their supply depot. Back on Earth, the news spread through resistance networks like wildfire. At first, many didn't believe it. A human victory in space seemed impossible. But when Jirani forces suddenly stopped receiving supplies and reinforcements, hope spread. In Chicago, Lisa Rodriguez's team listened to the encrypted broadcast confirming the Mars mission's success. "They did it," Frank said, his voice filled with awe. "They actually did it." Lisa nodded, fighting back tears. "Now it's our turn. Gather everyone. We move on their ground base tonight." Similar scenes played out across the planet. Resistance fighters emerged from hiding by the thousands. For the first time, the occupiers found themselves surrounded in their own strongholds. Admiral Lorex stared at the report in disbelief. The Mars depot destroyed, supply lines cut. And now, humans attacking Jirani positions everywhere at once. "Impossible," he muttered. But the evidence was undeniable. A junior officer entered his command center, visibly nervous. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Imperial Palace." Lorex knew what this meant. The Emperor had heard of their failure. "Put it through," he said, preparing himself for the worst. Emperor Kalzak's face appeared on the screen, his expression unreadable. "The situation has changed, Admiral. The main fleet has been dispatched to Earth. You will hold position until they arrive." "Yes, Emperor. How soon can we expect them?" 20 Earth days. "And Admiral, when they arrive, there will be no more measured responses. Earth will be made an example of." As the transmission ended, Lorex felt something he had never experienced. In his long military career, fear, not of the Emperor or his punishment, but of the humans who had somehow, against all odds, struck a blow that no one believed possible. The Mars miracle, as Earth would come to call it, had changed everything. 20 days after the Mars miracle, Earth prepared for the Empire's revenge. Everyone knew the Jirani main fleet was coming. Intelligence gathered from captured alien officers suggested it would be the largest force ever assembled for a single planetary conquest. In what remained of the White House, President Harper met with his War Council. The room had been rebuilt underground, safe from orbital bombardment. Maps and screens covered the walls showing Jirani positions and human resistance strongholds. "They'll be here tomorrow," Harper said, his face lined with exhaustion, but his eyes still determined. "Admiral Lorex has already moved his ships to the far side of the moon to join them." Samantha Kelly pointed to images of the approaching fleet. "These vessels are much larger than what we've faced so far. The main battleship alone is the size of Manhattan." "Then we've lost," said one general. "No," Dr. Alan West interrupted. He had aged years in the months since the invasion began, but today he looked almost energized. "We have one more card to play." All eyes turned to him as he activated a display showing a massive energy shield surrounding Earth. "Is that possible?" Samantha asked. Alan nodded. "Using their own technology against them. We've been gathering components from every downed Jirani, ship and base. If we link the resistance power networks worldwide, we can create a planetary shield." "For how long?" Harper asked. 3 days at most. But that's all we need." The president looked confused. "Need for what?" It was Samantha who answered. "For Colonel Bennett's mission." In a hidden lunar base established before the invasion, Colonel Jack Bennett prepared his new fleet. After returning from Mars, he and the surviving pilots had been secretly working on an even bolder plan. This time they weren't using modified Earth shuttles. They had captured intact Jirani vessels during ground assaults on alien bases. Now these ships, repainted with Earth symbols, waited in the shadow, of lunar craters. Jack addressed the pilots gathered before him. They were an international group, survivors from air forces around the world who had been trained to operate alien craft. The Jirani expect us to defend Earth, he told them. They don't expect us to take the fight to them. He activated a holographic display showing not Earth, but a series of planets. These are the nearest Jirani-controlled worlds. While their main fleet attacks Earth, we'll strike at the heart of their empire. One pilot raised her hand. Sir, even with their ships, we're vastly outnumbered. Jack smiled. We're not going to win by destroying their military. We're going to win by destroying their myth of invincibility. He highlighted specific structures on each world. These are monuments to imperial power, symbols that tell conquered people the Jirani cannot be defeated. We're going to burn them to the ground. As the pilots prepared, Jack sent one final message to Earth. Operation Phoenix is go. Across Earth, resistance fighters activated the planetary shield components. In Chicago, Lisa Rodriguez and Frank Miller connected massive power cells to a converted Jirani generator. In what remained of Beijing, similar scenes played out. From the Amazon to the African plains, humans worked together on the planet's last defense. Olivia Grant, now coordinating global communications from the Nevada facility, monitored the shield's power levels. It's working, she told Kate Johnson. Shield integrity at 87% and holding. In orbit, Admiral Lorex watched as the main fleet arrived, hundreds of warships led by a massive dreadnought. Aboard the flagship, Grand Marshal Zorex, the Emperor's most decorated commander, took control of the operation. Report, Admiral, Zorex demanded. Lorex bowed. We've detected unusual energy readings from the planet's surface, Grand Marshal. It doesn't matter. Nothing can withstand the might of this fleet. Begin bombardment immediately. The attack began. Thousands of energy weapons fired simultaneously at Earth. The sky lit up with deadly light. But when the barrage hit the planetary shield, it dissipated in ripples of blue energy. The Grand Marshal stared in disbelief. Impossible. These primitives cannot have shield technology of this magnitude. What the Jirani commanders didn't notice was the small fleet of their own ships rising from the dark side of the moon. Jack Bennett led 20 captured vessels away from Earth, jumping to faster than light speed before they could be detected. While Earth's shield held firm, Jack's fleet arrived at the nearest Jirani colony world. The planet had been conquered decades earlier, its native population forced to serve the Empire. Target the Imperial Palace only, Jack ordered. No civilian casualties. The human-piloted Jirani ships descended on the unsuspecting world. Defense systems didn't fire, recognizing their own vessels. By the time the confusion cleared, Jack's pilots had released their payloads. The enormous statue of Emperor Kalzak, standing over half a mile high in the center of the capital, exploded in flames, visible across the continent. Similar monuments on the planet's other major cities fell simultaneously. As they departed for their next target, Jack broadcast a message on all frequencies. Earth fights. Earth does not kneel. You don't have to either. They repeated this pattern on 2 more worlds before the Jirani realized what was happening. By then, it was too late. News spread faster than their ships could travel. Rebellions erupted on worlds that had been quiet for generations. Back at Earth, the shield began to weaken under constant bombardment. President Harper, Samantha Kelly, and the resistance leaders knew they could not survive much longer. Then, something unexpected happened. The Jirani attack suddenly stopped. In orbit, Grand Marshal Zorex received urgent communications from the Imperial Palace. Emperor Kalzak himself appeared on screen, his usually composed features twisted with rage. Cease the attack, the Emperor ordered. Return to Imperial space immediately. But Emperor, we have them cornered. Rebellions have broken out on 12 worlds. The humans have somehow turned our own ships against us and struck at the heart of our territory. Return now to defend the Empire. As the transmission ended, Zorex turned to Admiral Lorex. Recall all forces. We're leaving. Lorex couldn't hide his shock. Abandoning the conquest? This has never happened in Imperial history. On Earth, people emerged from hiding to see Girani ships withdrawing from orbit. At first, no one believed it was real. After so much suffering, the idea of victory seemed impossible. In the Nevada facility, they received Jack Bennett's transmission. Phoenix complete. Coming home. 2 days later, a Girani diplomatic vessel entered Earth orbit under a flag of truce. The ship carried a message from Emperor Kalzak himself. Immediate withdrawal from Earth, recognition of human sovereignty, and an offer of peace negotiations. President Harper met with his advisors to discuss the terms. They're afraid of us, Samantha realized. Not just our resistance, but what we represent. Other worlds are watching. Harper nodded. We'll negotiate, but on our terms, and those terms include the freedom of the other species they've enslaved. When Jack Bennett's fleet returned to Earth, they were greeted as heroes. But the true victory wasn't just military. Humanity had done something unprecedented. They had forced the mighty Girani Empire to retreat. In Chicago, Lisa Rodriguez watched children playing in a park being reclaimed from ruins. Frank stood beside her, his arm in a sling from the final battle. "Do you think they'll come back?" he asked. Lisa shook her head. "No. We showed them something they've never seen before. We showed the galaxy that empires can fall if people refuse to kneel." Across the stars, on planets that had known only imperial rule for generations, the fires of rebellion continued to burn. And they all began with one world that refused to surrender, Earth.